Welcome to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we're going to kick off the new year with a busy episode of SJHL Insider. We're going to be joined by Jamie and Rory as we're going to chat a little bit about the first half of the season, but we're also going to preview tomorrow night's SJHL Game of the Month. It should be a doozy. Estevan Bruins, Weyburn Red Wings. Going to be a great game, but of course, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we've got to give a big shout-out and a big thank you to all of our great sponsors. With the SJHL, of course, UPL, our presenting sponsor for all of our shows, so a big thank you to UPL, as well as Bourgault, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Chevrolet, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGEU, SGI. Thanks so much for your support. Without your support, these shows would not be possible. Let's bring in our co-host, Clark Monroe. Clark, how are we? How was your holiday?
It was good. It was busy. It was a different experience for me this year for several reasons. We won't get into that right now. But otherwise, it was great. We had a great time, lots of family, and time well spent. What about you?
All right. Well, it was good. It was good. I'm just going to leave it at that because we have a busy
Perfect.
episode. It's time for you to throw it to your favorite segment.
All right, let's get into it. It's time for the hat trick.
There it is.
The hat trick. Bam. First track.
That's all right. All right. Couple of games already to start 2024 in the SJHL. The first one happened on New Year's Day. Of course, it was the second half of the holiday home and home between the Yorkton Terriers, Melville Millionaires. Yorkton completing the holiday sweep with a 5-2 win over Melville to kind of get back into the playoff race, but we'll chat about that in a bit. And then last night, it was the Nipawin Hawks with their offense exploding, earning a 7-3 win over the Kindersley Clippers. Of course, all of our lookbacks are presented by Sask Lottery. So 4 of the 12 teams in the SJHL have returned to the ice. Pretty much everybody else will return to the ice this weekend. But not only are we going to recap the 2 games that happened, we do need to mention a couple of trades that took place over the course of the last couple of days. The Notre Dame Hounds have acquired Spencer Borsas from the Calgary Canucks. I probably butchered that. We'll wait and find out. I'm sure Nugsy will tell us.
Oh, he'll tell us.
From the Calgary Canucks. The Estevan Bruins traded Tristan Dussault to the Quebec Junior Hockey League for a player development fee. The Humboldt Broncos acquired Boris Kaufman from the Toronto Junior Canadiens for a player development fee. And the Flin Flon Bombers traded Isaac Duveau to the Winkler Flyers for a player development fee. And then a trade that just came down the pipe today, January 4th, the Yorkton Terriers traded Dylan Reptash to the Spruce Grove Saints of the Alberta Junior Hockey League as part of a 3-team trade. And they acquired a pair of player development fees. And I think, obviously, when it comes to those trades, Clark, the Reptash one stands out the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another sign that Emery Olison is putting his stamp on the team. And we talked about this, I think the last episode before the break was just look out for the Yorkton Terriers because, you know, they had a late start with the coach coming in late. And he's finally putting his stamp on the team, getting his squad assembled. And this was a big move, obviously, last year's leading scorer for them. A big move to kind of make as the trade deadline quickly approaches.
And on YorktonTerriers.com, just want to read off a quote that Emery Olison had. Reptash's wish was to go closer to home, and we were able to come to an agreement with that. So that kind of led to partially the trade, but of course Yorkton, we've seen them trade Clay Sleva. You can kind of see, like you mentioned, Emery's kind of putting his own spin on the Yorkton Terriers, but I mean, they're playing some good hockey already with some changing of the guard. You sweep your holiday home and home with the Melville Millionaires. Just want to give a shout out to the Parkland region because the crowds for both of those games were outstanding. I think I read online it was about 1,600 people in Melville for New Year's Day. Yeah. 2 o'clock start. Probably some people not feeling too good too.
Hair of the dog.
So everybody out and about for New Year's Day game. Great to see. But of course, we're not going to talk about it much today on today's show, but of course the SJHL trade deadline is coming up in less than a week. Stay tuned to sjhl.ca where you can check in on all the transactions that take place. Now let's move on to the second point of the hat trick, that being the SJHL standings. Let's pull them up. Of course, with those 2 victories, the Yorkton Terriers have kind of got back into the playoff mix a little bit. They're just 4 points back of the 8th and final playoff spot. But of course, we do have to mention during the holiday break, there was a forfeiture of a victory for the Nipawin Hawks because they played an ineligible player. And as a result, they ended up losing one of their victories over the Melfort Mustangs. It ended up forcing them to be tied with the Kindersley Clippers going into last night's game with 30 points. But good news for Hawks fans, impressive win last night. They're back in sole possession of 5th place in the SJHL standings. And it's obviously there's not going to be much movement since the last couple of games, but as you can see, you're kind of looking at 5 through 10 being a huge race for those final 4 playoff spots. And again, 2 through 4, another big race in the top of the standings as well.
Absolutely. The Viterra division, we talk about it all the time. Just that 7 through 10 spot, like that battle is intense, and I can't wait to see how those teams play each other over the next little stretch because they all seem to have games against each other coming up.
They do.
So that'll be exciting to watch. Like you said, Nipawin and Kindersley, that's going to be a battle down the stretch as well. And that top 4, man, it's just so fun to watch how good these teams are, how solid they're playing, and we're seeing some of that consistency out of those teams that we've been asking for all year long. So so many different storylines as we enter this unofficial, as you always say, unofficial second half of the season. And, I can't wait to get all of these teams back on the ice.
And Melfort got a big boost over the holiday break, getting Ty Evans back.
Right.
Of course, he was with the Melfort Mustangs last season, so that'll be a nice big boost for the Mustangs forward group. Of course, we just mentioned earlier on that the Humboldt Broncos acquired Boris Koppen from the Toronto Junior Canadiens. Nice forward addition for the Broncos. And we'll see what those top 4 teams in the SJHL standings do. And I'm always curious, I think, especially when you look at those standings, especially those teams now 5 through 9 and 5 through 10, I should say, if you include Yorkton. We kind of know what Yorkton's trying to want to do. But 5 through 9, what those teams are going to do ahead of the postseason, because it is so tight, especially 5 through 9, only separated by 6 points. And it's funny because 5 and 6, Nipawin and Kindersley, they played 33 games, but then 7, 8, 9 with Weyburn, Estevan, and Melville, 28, 29, 28 games played. So obviously they have 5 or 4 games in hand on those 2 teams. And like you mentioned, and we'll get to it later on in the show, a lot of divisional games between those 2 teams. Weyburn and Melville haven't even played each other yet this year. They're going to see a lot of each other down the stretch.
Buckle
and
up.
The first meeting is Saturday, spoiler. And then, of course, Weyburn and Estevan for the SJHL Game of the Month. So at the end of the day, somebody's got to get 2 points. So for those teams in Nipawin and Kindersley, you have to take advantage of those games that you do have because you have played a significant amount more. But it's going to be a very, very interesting race in the SJHL standings when it comes to 5 through 10. All right, final point of the hat trick. Quickly, let's talk about the SJHL Players of the Month, which was announced a day later. I apologize. Day later, January 2nd.
Yeah.
I'll take the blame.
Hey, the first was a stat.
It was. It was.
Okay.
And I was traveling too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that didn't help. I was
Travel
traveling
day.
back to Saskatchewan.
We're fine.
So I'll just rattle off the players of the month, and I want to get which one stands out the most to you.
Yep.
SGU MVP of the month was Carter Anderson of the Flin Flon Bombers, 10 goals, 4 assists in 6 games. Borgo forward of the month, Kian Bell, of course, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points in 5 games played. Noah Houle, the Flin Flon Bombers, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points in 5 games played. Ben Costantino, the Humboldt Broncos, rookie of the month, 4 goals, 7 assists in 6 games played. Goalie of the month was Cody Jamin of the Kindersley Clippers, 2-2 record, a 1.36 goals against average, a 953 save percentage, but he had 2 shutouts, and now he's tied for the league lead in shutouts. And then the Cantera Seeds Saskatchewan Player of the Month was Zach Summers of the Melfort Mustangs. He had 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points, 8 games played. So I guess out of those 6, who stood out for you the most?
Yeah, I want to say a couple, but I will go with Ben Costantino of Humboldt. I just think he's putting up some really nice numbers from the blue line this year. His name keeps coming up every time I look at Humboldt's results. I keep seeing his name pop up, and as a rookie to come in and be playing as good of a role and putting up the types of points that he has been putting up all season long, I think it's been a huge boost for Humboldt overall just to have him. And we talk about other guys on their blue line like Connor Toohey and Dalen Weigel as well, but he's been a guy who's I just keep seeing his name pop up, and that's usually a good sign. So I'm going to say his performance this month as Rookie of the Month was a big one for me.
And now he is leading the league amongst rookie defensemen in scoring because of that solid month. He passed, of course, Carson Olsen of the Balfour's North Stars, who, of course, earned that Division I scholarship just ahead of the SJHL Showcase. And maybe the same can be said for Ben Costantino in the near future. For me, I think the first three were the obvious ones, I think. But, one player I'd like to highlight is Zach Summers and the Melfort Mustangs. They went 8-0 during the month of December. And they played some good teams. They earned some wins. And obviously, Summers has been playing on a line with Clay Sleva since they acquired him. And it looks like they've developed some chemistry. And they go 8-0 during the month of December. They're now in sole possession of second place in the SJHL standings. We talked about them getting Ty Evans back. Huge addition. I don't think Trevor Blevins is done. I think, Summers is obviously a hometown guy returning after it looked like he might not come back to the Melfort Mustangs this offseason. He returns. He's healthy now again after being out of the lineup, and he's been a big addition for them, and they're playing very, very well. I saw them early on in December, and Trevor Blevins has them playing some very good hockey into December, and we'll see if that continues come the month of January. Their first game back is on Friday in Larange against the Ice Wolves. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just getting a 20-year-old like Ty Evans back, essentially for free. I mean, more or less, you get him just to add to your roster. It is for free.
It's for free.
He didn't put up a ton of points last year, but you get a contributor like that who knows the league, has a lot of experience in the league, and can fill a really nice role for that team. Like you said, they're getting some good forward play. They had a great month, and they're starting to roll a little bit, and now you add that. If you're Trevor Blevins, I think you do look to supplement because you just got a free player essentially that knows your team and is comfortable in the league. I think you're all in. I think you have to go for this year with how good they are, top 2 in the league at the moment, and continuing to roll. I think Trevor Blevins, pedal to the metal if it was me, but he's been in this league a long time. He knows what he's doing. He'll be okay.
And they are one of 2 teams to beat the Flin Flon Bombers this year. And if you go back if you look at the meetings this year between those 2 teams, close games.
Yeah.
Very close games. And spoiler, again, they're going to play again this weekend, Saturday.
Will we be talking about that one later on in the show? Who knows?
Probably. It always seems to come back around. That is the hat trick, as always, as we kind of recap the week that was so far. I know it's been light. Hopefully everybody had a good New Year's. And I'm going to see now. Do we have the guys ready, guys, in the back? Yes, sir. All right, let's bring them in. It's Rory McGouran, Jamie Neugebauer on the 3-shot. Hey, guys, Happy New Year. How are we doing? Rory, how was your Christmas?
Very good, guys. I hope you guys had a well-rested holidays, saw family and loved ones as I did. It was great, right? Christmas we hosted here in Humboldt. And New Year's, I got back to Winnipeg, which was fun. And I'm ready to get back into the swing of things. We said it on the final show of SJHL Weekly. There's 3 tiers of intensity. It's prior to the Christmas break, it's after the Christmas break, and it's into the playoffs. And we're about to see tier 2 here come for, a couple games already played, but it's going to start for all 12 this weekend.
I love moving into tier 2. Nugsy, how was your holiday?
Yeah, it was good, simple, stayed at home, ate lots of good food, and watched the World Juniors. Unfortunately, we can get into that a little if you want, but it was nice to recharge the batteries. It was pretty low on juice, to be honest, so I'm happy to be back, and I can't wait to get back in the rink with you boys.
And as always, we appreciate your honesty. First half of the season is in the books. I want to ask you guys before we kind of move away into the new year and everything. But for you guys in the first half of this season, Rory, I'll start with you. What stood out for you the most in the 2023 portion of this season?
Like as a league as a whole, I think to me, it's the separation of the top 4 teams right now. Obviously, Flin Flon, the run they've been on, they're the best team in Canada. They believe that anyone in those top 4 teams can, come away with an SJHL championship. When you look back at years past, there's, winning records from at least 7 teams in the past 5-6 years. 7 teams last year, 7 teams the year before. 8 teams the year before that. This year, it's just the top 4. Everyone else has either a losing record or the Weyburn Red Wings, who are right at 500. So that's the cream of the crop. That's what stands out to me. Can another team prove that they're among them? We'll see in the second tier of intensity. But what those 4 teams have done is pretty impressive, and that's what's standing out right now.
Nugsy, how about you?
Yeah, lots. I mean, you know what? I think we talk a lot about Kean Bell coming back from the Western Hockey League and, what type of damage he would do. But the impact that he had on the Battleford North Stars is something that you don't see every year. So unique. 16-2-2 since he came back. One man came back. And I mean, he's a great man. And the Battleford North Stars had a good team and a great coaching staff already. But we weren't quite like, is it a rebuild year? What is it for Battlefords? But it wasn't this. And, certainly that top 4, they're a big part of it. It is an elite 4, and then it's the rest of the pack for sure, what Rory said. But I'm just constantly amazed, Kean Bell, whatever, he's 20, Western Hockey League Q, whatever you want to say, but it's so impressive, the consistency and the impact that one guy can have.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Before we talk about SJHL Game of the Month tomorrow night, because I really want to talk about that matchup and the Game of the Months as a whole. Obviously, over the course of the last couple of days, we've seen 5 transactions in the SJHL. Trade deadlines next week. I know we're going to talk a lot about it come Monday on SJHL Weekly, but we've seen 5 transactions over the course of the last couple of days. Nugsy, I'll start with you on this one. Do you expect it to be a more active deadline ahead of the deadline compared to last year?
Do I expect it? I expect it to be about the same. I think a big issue is we talk a lot about the parity in this league, and really 1 through 12 still. And I still hope for number 12, obviously, for reasons that you guys already know and are pretty obvious. But definitely 1 through 11 really feel like that they're playoff teams right now. So to move within the league, it is so difficult. I don't think we'll see an avalanche between now and the 10th. We'll see a piece here and a piece there, drips and drabs. So really interesting to see Dylan Ruptash move on. That was pretty interesting. And the ad that Humboldt got in Boris Kaufman. But, other than that, I don't expect a big avalanche, no.
Rory, what about you?
I think I kind of defer on that. Differ because I see it arms races kind of in different groups across the standings, right? I do find that the top 4 teams know they're the top 4 teams, but I still feel that the 3 of them think there might be a little bit of a gap. Okay, can we get one more guy? Can we get one more 20-year-old on the back end, right? I know they love their pieces, but I feel that Melfort, Battlefords, and Humboldt, if they can add, they will. I also feel Flin Flon. We know Mike Reagan.
Right.
That's a championship drought of a fan base and a team that's been yearning to have it for so long. So if there's a piece out there that he can bring in, he will. And then you got to look at the bunch of teams under it. Nipawin, right? They played a lot of. They're the play near. Also, trying to get back to the playoffs in the longest drought. So will they add? We've seen Yorkton kind of be a seller, but I see Weyburn, Kindersley, Nipawin, Estevan fighting to jump into the top 4. I see the top 4 trying to prove that they're with the Flin Flon Bombers. I don't say an avalanche like 25 trades, but I can see every team adding from 1 to 9 right now, and I don't blame them for doing so because there's reasons for all of them to do so.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us really would be surprised if 1 through 9 added come January 10th. All right, big matchup tomorrow night, SJHL Game of the Month, Estevan Bruins, Weyburn Red Wings. I know I can speak for the 3 of us. We had a great time calling the first SJHL Game of the Month in Kindersley between the Clippers and the North Stars. Obviously, that game was a bit one-sided, but going into this game, guys, Estevan Weyburn, obviously the rivalry is so well known, the Highway 39 rivalry, but these 2 teams are tied in the standings right now, so it's going to make it even more spicy. Rory, I'll start with you. What do you expect from this matchup, and how excited are you for tomorrow night?
I'm always excited, and I apologize, guys, if my internet's being a little spotty. I lost you guys a couple times, so hopefully I'm coming through clear, but This is one of the best rivalries in the SJHL. And the way that the league and SaskTel has set up these 4 games, this might have been the one that was circled with the darkest marker because Estevan and Weyburn hate each other. Estevan has always had their number. But then, if you look at this year, Weyburn's won all 3 games this season.
That's right.
It's flipped. And both these teams, when you look at the standings, guys, like they have the same amount of points. Estevan only has 1 game in hand. Right off, this is the one that I have been waiting for. January 5th, I had it circled down for the game of the month.
Nugsy, what about you?
Yeah, there's a bitter taste in the mouths of Estevan Bruins fans. Let me tell you. Look, you talk about rivalries, and in this day and age, everybody says everybody's so friendly with each other, and it's a lot of fun, and a lot of teddy bears and chocolates, and a lot of smiles, and and everything's so much more friendly than it used to be in the game of hockey. But this is one of those last vestiges of really unfriendly rivalries. Like, these 2 teams don't like each other. Their coaches don't like each other. Their organizations don't like each other. Both teams, both organizations have big chips on their shoulders. They don't like each other. They don't want to see the other team win in any kind of a situation. And as Rory, you said it, Estevan has really had the Weyburn Red Wings number lately. The Bruins have a 16-8 record the last number of years, kind of since COVID, since Jason Tatarnik and Cody Mapes took over, and so that's a pretty good record if you're an Estevan Bruins fan. Very interesting to see both Dazzin Mitchell and Cam Herdlecka, if they're the 2 starters. They've both faced the other team 100,000 times over their careers. I have the actual numbers, which I'll save for tomorrow. I've got to tease something. But there's a lot of familiarity. There's a lot of contempt. And so if there's one word that I could say to describe what I expect tomorrow to be, I expect it to be nasty.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption. And you know what? The thing I love about this rivalry, too, is, obviously, not only do you mentioned Nugsy, these 2 teams don't really like each other, but the communities get behind this rivalry, too. We've seen it across social media. The Fire Chiefs have a bet each and every year when it comes to that. And we're going to speak with actually the Fire Chiefs on the broadcast tomorrow night on SaskTel Max TV Local. But first and foremost, we do encourage you, if you are in Southeast Saskatchewan, come out to Crescent Point Place. Come watch the Estevan Bruins, Weyburn Red Wings. It's going to be a great matchup. You can say hi to us. If not, catch the game on SaskTel Max TV Local. Puck drop is at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a great game. All 3 of us are very excited for it. Now, guys, I don't know if you guys are big into New Year's resolutions, but I kind of got our good friend, producer Clark, to do a New Year's resolution this year. He's not on camera yet. There he is. Hi, Clark.
I get the big one. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Well, because this is a very important New Year's resolution.
It's true.
His New Year's resolution on SJHL Insider now is to ask 1 question in the interview. So without further ado.
Now I get to ask both of them one question,
with the
right?
segment in the segment, it's time now for Clark's question.
Clark! Okay, well, I got one for each of you, so I hope you're ready. Nugsy, I'm going to start with you, because you're in the middle. Where are you? Over here.
Yeah.
So since you're the writer of Sask's Finest, which is a reoccurring article on sjhl.ca, check it out.
Good plug.
Thank you. Good article, Nugsy. Who would you say is the best mascot in the SJHL and why? And yes, Gus the Gasosaurus from Sask Energy counts. I'm going to include Gus the Gasosaurus in this because I feel like he's an important member of the SJHL family.
All right. Nugsy.
The best mascot, and look, people love to call me a homer, and that's fine. But Argo at Notre Dame is terrific. And here's why. They always have some kid hyped up on like Mountain Dew and Red Bull and whatever doing the mascot. So the mascot when he comes out is always so fired up and so friendly. So and he's a guy that I'm sure you know too, Clark. Don't lie to me. You've probably met Argo before. So I'm going to go with Argo because he's a beauty.
Is it Jacob Faith by chance?
Was it
Notre Dame alumni Jacob Faith?
It could be.
It could be. Rory, I'm going to throw some of your own medicine at you. This is Clark's rapid fire.
Okay.
How can you do our rapid fire with only 1 question?
It's a combination of a few. I kept it short though.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I like
so
it.
I'm going to start off with a would you rather. Would you rather, as a broadcaster, call a game with a sore throat or a splitting headache?
Oh.
And all of you guys can probably answer this question, but
Splitting headache, because the sore throat usually leads to you losing your voice, which is the worst, and that's happened to me before.
literally the definition of the worst case scenario for a broadcaster.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Favorite road rink to call a game in? This is I think we've asked this
We
before,
have
but it's
asked
always
this.
a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wit.
The Wit. Yeah, good answer.
Easy.
Best interviewee on the Broncos this season.
Newens is always fantastic. Motu's a dark horse for interview. He's pretty good at it too. So I'll start with those two.
Last one, because I'm keeping it short. Funniest member of the Broncos this season, and you can't
God.
you can't say more than one person. You got to pick one guy,
Oh,
and you are allowed
Man,
to
that
hurt.
is-
You're
that
going to hurt
is-
some feelings here, I bet. But this is an important one.
Sorrow?
Interesting.
Maybe
Okay.
that guy's, he's always really lighthearted and likes to joke around. He likes to give hugs. So
He's a hugger.
yeah, but he's a hugger. But yeah, he always kind of has a way to make people smile that are around him. So I'll say him.
Perfect. That's a great person to be. I love that. All right. Well, that's it. That's my resolution. Clark's question.
Well, no, you're not breaking the New Year's resolution. You're going to continue this through.
That's my first one.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. This
First
has
edition.
been Clark's question. Take him off the screen now. There he goes. All right. He's gone.
Get
But guys, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for hopping on the show today. We really appreciate it as always. I'm excited to see you guys tomorrow. Crescent Point Place, SJHL Game of the Month. It's going to be a barn burner, and you guys will have the call. Can't wait. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. But again, thanks so much for hopping on the show today.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
All right, that's Jamie Neugebauer, Rory McGouran, the fellas hopping on the show. Of course, our co-host on SJHL Weekly, each and every Monday across the SJHL social media platforms. What time do we start that show again? 1:15. Sorry,
1:15.
it's been a hot minute.
It's almost been a month. Feels like it.
It's
anyways.
been almost a month since SJHL Weekly went live. Yeah, it's been a minute. So yeah, 1:15 across the SJHL social media platforms, but you can see all three of us on the SJHL Game of the Month on SaskTel Max TV Local tomorrow night. Guys, in the back, if we have the schedule, that'd be great. 3 more SJHL Games of the Month. Of course, we did Battlefords and Kindersley right before the holiday break. A lot of fun. We do wish the game was a bit closer, but it was an impressive performance by Battlefords. Estevan Weyburn, tomorrow night, Crescent Point Place. Get out to the rink, supports this Highway 39 rivalry. If not, tune in, SaskTel Max TV Local. And then, of course, on February 9th, Melfort Humboldt will then be the next one. So a lot of fun with the SJHL Games of the Month on SaskTel. Big shout out to SaskTel for putting this on. And of course, they'll also have the SJHL final this year. All right, let's talk about the first weekend of 2024 with SJHL action. And it's a busy one. It's a busy one. So let's start with Friday. There's 4 games on the schedule. So a normal Friday, nothing too crazy, but let's pull it up. We don't have the schedules on the screen. That's okay. I'll read them off to everybody. Estevan, of course, and Weyburn. We talked about that one. Obviously, it's the SJHL Game of the Month. Humboldt visits Yorkton. Yorkton off to a great start here in this unofficial second half of the season, sweeping the Melville Millionaires for a pair of games. They'll look to try and make it 3 straight as they play host to Humboldt. Flin Flon and Nipawin. That should be a fun one at the Whitney Forum between the Hawks and the Bombers. And then Melfort is in L'Orange at the Mel to take on the L'Orange Ice Wolves. Then Saturday, I don't think it's the first one of the year, of the season, but it's the first one of 2024. It's a Super Saturday in the SJHL.
Woo-woo.
What does that mean, Clark? Well, let me tell you, Clark.
Okay.
All 12 teams.
I was gonna answer.
All 12 teams. They're on the ice.
Every single one.
Every single one.
Nice.
Hey, there's the Saturday schedule. We got that though.
Boom.
Our guys in the back doing a great job.
Snappy.
Yeah, L'Orange Nipawin. That'll be again fun one. I think that is the first time that Liam McInnes is going to play his former team. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah.
I think
No,
that's
you're right.
correct.
You're right.
If I'm not correct, I'm sorry.
Well, it's only been a few weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Weyburn and Melville. I teased it earlier. First meeting of the season? Viterra Division rivals. First meeting of the season. Notre Dame and Yorkton, 7 o'clock. Westland Arena. Estevan home to Battleford's. Take on the North Stars. Those two teams played December 1st at the ACC in North Battleford. And if this game is anything like that one, get out to the rink. It's going to be a very entertaining game. Of course, Humboldt is in Kindersley when those two teams lock up. Those two teams have played a lot of close games this year. And then, of course, again, another game I teased. Did a lot of teasing in this episode. Flin Flon, Melfort, Northern Lights, Palace, 7:30. Gonna be a barn burner. Should be a good crowd, hopefully, on hand for that one, because two of the top teams in the SJHL, two of the top teams in the CJHL, locking horns at the Palace. And then on Sunday, just the one game. Yes, there is a game on Sunday, folks. There it is. Hey, Battleford's Notre Dame. 4:30 at the Dunk.
You know when the back room is loud, that stuff's going down back there. They're doing great work. Good job, guys.
No, I think they're just yelling at us, to be honest.
They might be yelling at us.
I don't know. As always, Clark, once we look at the schedule for the weekend, I always ask you, what is your game of the weekend? And here's the thing. Got lots to choose from.
Ton of candidates.
Well, there's 11.
Yeah.
11 games, if my math is
Including a
correct.
Super Saturday, Jeremy, which I don't know if you know, but that means every team is playing.
Mm-hmm. I trademarked that, by the way, so if anybody tries to steal that, other media companies,
It's
I'm just saying I
It's
trademarked
lawsuit
it. So.
time. Yeah.
Lots to choose from. Which one is yours?
So there's
Game of the,
some heavyweight battles, including some teams at the top of the standings.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about those. I'm going to go with Saturday's Weyburn and Melville game.
Okay.
There's a lot of playoff implications there. We talked
Wasn't
so much.
the direction I thought you'd go.
Yeah, there's a
Interesting.
lot of playoff implications. The Viterra division, we talk a lot about how close that division is, and those teams need to start getting wins against each other. They're going to play each other a lot. This is
Gotcha.
the first of they play, 6 times in the second half.
If you stall, I can look it up.
Yeah, check out the graphic that we put up because it's on there. But that is
It is
one
6.
thing that I'm looking forward to a lot is this Viterra division and just seeing matchups galore in the second half. Because you talk about the Weyburn-Estevan rivalry. Yes, very true. But all 4 of those teams have rivalries, really nice rivalries against each other.
agree with that.
And especially when they're this close in the standing. Literally 7, 8, 9, 10 Viterra division. Every game matters so much for these guys, and I just can't wait to see. So that's I know there's one on Friday and whatever, but I'm going with Saturday's Weyburn and Melville game.
What do you mean one on Friday?
The game of the month.
Oh,
Estevan
you're
Weyburn.
talking about a Viterra division.
Viterra division, that's what I meant.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
But I know
I was going to say Melville does not play on
No.
Friday. You are correct.
6?
Weyburn and Melville will play 6 times in the unofficial second half of the season.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning, though, this is spicy.
Uh-oh.
And I think I actually included this in the article on sjhl.ca when we did our 12 Days of Christmas Break segment. Weyburn, 28 games remaining in
Yes.
the SJHL season, right?
Yep.
They have 11 against Viterra division opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Good
just saying,
chance.
like, that. If you do well in your division, you're going to have success. And I think for all those teams, there's going to be a lot of divisional games down the stretch. And really, you play well in the division, there's a good chance you might win the division.
Yes.
Um,
Especially with the second half coming up the way that it is, and they're playing against each other and they're so close.
And I know we talked about this on SJHL Weekly too, and I do believe we talked about it on Insider before the holiday break. But one thing that Weyburn definitely has in their favor compared to, I think, a bunch of the other Viterra division teams is they have played pretty much all of their games against the top 4 teams. No more games against Battlefords. They do have one more game against Humboldt, which they did beat before the holiday break.
Yep.
Just one more game against Flin Flon and 2 games against Melfort, but both those games are at home.
Yep.
So you're playing a lot of teams around you in the SJHL standings. So I'll go out and say this. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw out of all those teams, I think it was Rory that mentioned it, about those teams. Is there anybody going to be
Yes.
somebody that separates themselves? I could see it being Weyburn based off their schedule, playing a lot of teams around them in the standings.
Mm-hmm.
It just
gives you a really good chance to separate yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's food for thought for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Weyburn Melville game is going to be extremely important. Same with any of those Viterra division matchups for the rest of the way are going to be interesting.
One interesting thing about Weyburn too, they are the most by a long shot penalized team in the league. I don't think they want to be.
And I just want to say this show isn't on repeat from last year. That was the case last year.
That was the case.
That was the
right.
case last year as
well.
well.
So, discipline goes a long way, and we'll see how this goes. But like you said, if Weyburn can just, get a few of these games going and get on a little bit of a roll, that could be huge for them.
And also worth mentioning, if you didn't see in the standings graphic, Weyburn, Estevan, Melville, Yorkton, the 4 teams in the Viterra division, only separated by 4 points. The biggest difference for Yorkton has gotten back into the mix. They've just played a lot more games. They played 4 more games than both Weyburn and Melville, and 3 more games against Estevan. But again, we talk about those divisional games. Yorkton has plenty. They have 26. Going into the holiday break, they had 26 games remaining. Similar to Weyburn, they had 11 games against Viterra division teams. Now, you minus 2 games against Melville, but they won both games. Mm-hmm. So now you're down to 24 games and 9 games against Viterra division opponents. And a big one is 5 games against Estevan.
Yeah.
We saw their first meeting of the year on the last week before the holiday break. They went into Estevan. They won that game. They're going to play I was looking at the schedule. They're going to play, I think, all 5 of those games, and I could be wrong. All 5 of those games are in February.
Yeah.
All 5 of those games are in February.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a playoff series between Estevan and Yorkton come February. So it's going to be exciting. But
and it's similar to Weyburn and Melville on Saturday here. Like you said, they're going to be playing such quick succession.
Absolutely.
That first game, that's why I picked that Weyburn Melville game for this weekend's my game of the week. And is because that first game I feel like goes such a long way to sending a message, setting the tempo, getting yourself on top early in that. I'm going to call it a series. I feel like it goes a long way for the rest of those games if you can do that. So it's an important one.
And the other thing too is with how the standings have been this year, season series are going to be very important when all is said and done. I have a feeling season series could be a factor down the stretch. Yeah. Okay, so for my game of the weekend, I really don't want to take one of the obvious ones. I think there's 2 obvious ones. Well, I'll just say the 2. The obvious ones are Estevan Weyburn on Friday, which you didn't take, but that is the SaskTel game of the month. Obvious one.
Yeah.
Saturday, the obvious one, Melfort and Flin Flon at the Northern Lights Palace. For me, I'm going to go with a game on Friday, just a different one. I'm going to go Nipawin Flin Flon. I'm just really intrigued because Nipawin had a really good performance on yesterday, against the Kindersley Clippers. And I want to see how they could potentially build off that, because I know talking with Tad Kozin earlier on in the season, I mean, way back when I did the season preview interviews, I remember chatting with him and him saying that he said in that interview, which you can find all the way back on our YouTube channel, on the SJHL YouTube channel, he said, if we don't finish top 4 in the SJHL standings, that is our goal. If we don't finish top 4, the regular season's kind of a failure. But here's where I'm going with this, is if they could go on a run and put together some wins, they played well against some of these top teams, they could potentially move up the standings. But here's the thing, they're going to have to, right now they're 11 points back at Humboldt for 4th. Odds aren't great. But
it's a steep hill.
We have seen crazier things. Mm-hmm. And I just think the other thing too with this for Nipawin is they want to, if they're not going to make it in the top 4, at least separate yourself so you can be in that fifth seed. For sure, because you're obviously so tight. And at least separate yourself and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room from the rest of the pack in that 5 through 10 range. And I think even if you go into Flin Flon and if you can find a way to get a point, I think you're going to be very, very happy. And then on the flip side of that, Flin Flon's first game after the holiday break. I want to see how they perform. Obviously, just the 3 losses this year. 28, 1-2, 1 regulation loss. It's been an incredible start to the season. Rob Hart said it best, though. You don't win championships in December. I'm curious. I want to see their first game back and see how they roll. And I think it's going to be an interesting week. To build off kind of Rory's point, I think it's going to be a really interesting week when it comes to potential movement and kind of a little bit of an arms race, really, when you look at those top 4 teams in the SJHL standings. So I think based off, like, when it comes to Nipawin Flin Flon, I think it's very intriguing for me. And that's kind of the one I want to keep an eye on, because I also think both those teams have a lot of firepower up front. And that could be a very, very exciting game, especially in the win. So that would be my game.
I like it a lot.
The weekend. I'll ask you this, because when we come back for our next episode of SJHL Insider, it'll be the day after the SJHL trade deadline and the CJHL trade deadline, which I'm sure will probably just most of that episode will be busy recapping the trade deadline and how everything kind of played out. But I asked the guys this. I'll ask you this. What do you expect over the course of the next 6 days?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple teams. I mean, we just talked about one, Nipawin. I feel like they, and I it's always hard for us without knowing how many player cards each team has. Who can actually make all moves and everything.
Take that out of the realm.
Taking it out just because we're fans just like everybody else as well, and it's fun to think about these types of things. And with Nipawin, like you said, with Tad's energy before the season being we need to finish top 4, I don't think he's done with that goal. I think he's very much thinks that it's still in the sights, and regardless of that 11-point hurdle that they have, I think you make a smart move or two with them, and they could really take off. I really do think so.
But do you think they've already made their big move acquiring Liam McInnes?
Yes, Liam McInnes is obviously, and when I was doing the stats for those graphics for the Christmas break segments, I look back at when I was doing Larange's last year and Liam McInnes' season last year, point per game, but he missed so much of the season. He comes back this year. He missed already a little bit, but he's already over a point per game as well. And he's such a good contributor. And that was such a smart move to add a player like that for this Nipawin team, which, we talked about one of their strengths is their firepower. They have a lot of it. And if you can supplement that with a guy to add to Ronan Buckberger back there, who can continue to move the puck up to those guys, that's a strength in proving a strength. And that's the way I look at it. And I think they could still do more of that if they have the ability to do so.
Sure. And I'll add to this, like, they, from the beginning of the season to where it is now, I'll say this with Tad and assistant general manager Dana Dirks, they've done a really good job of improving that blue line, because they went out and got Luke Chase, and I think he's been a very good complement. For a long time, he was playing with Ronan Buckberger, and then, of course, getting Liam McInnes. Yeah, that really fills out their blue line, and their blue line has definitely improved. I don't know if you watched the highlights from last night between Nipawin and Kindersley, and if you, the listener and viewer, if you haven't seen them, go to the SJHL YouTube channel. But a lot of really good setups by the defenseman last night. As soon as you said the blue line, I thought of a really good assist by Luke Chase last night. But I think when I look at Nipawin's roster, just to conclude on your point, I think that's a team that I think most people can say has underperformed this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they took off in the second half. Do they need to make a move? I don't know if they need to make a move, but if they can, they probably will.
I think they're in striking distance of making a move. If they're in a position to.
But anyways, taking teams aside, do you think it's going to be busy?
I want to say every year is going to be busy, but one thing that came up, there was an interesting Twitter thread. What's your biggest pet peeve in hockey right now? And one of the answers was teams not making a decisive decision over who they are and selling players earlier than. Or selling players in general, and just trying to snag a low playoff spot or something like that. So, and that's with the way that it is right now.
Right.
With even Larange only being 7 points out, that's 3 weeks of good games, good wins. They're not that far. It's tough for me to look at any of these teams and be like, well, they're a seller. they're selling. There's teams like Yorkton who I think made some really smart moves, moving out Sleva, but also bringing in Coyle. So you can make moves like that and still be competitive and still work towards something.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm looking forward to most is maybe we're going to see some more hockey trades this year where, a team needs a blue liner and another team needs a forward and they swap and it's a really smart move for both. But I just don't see any teams right now that are like dedicated sellers, not a ton anyways. So it's just tough for me to really think there's going to be more movement than past years. If that makes any sense.
Here's maybe an example of what we could see because we have a breaking trade.
A breaking trade? Hold on. Let me open. You go ahead.
No. I'm just going to say it. It's not.
You go ahead. I just want to open Twitter and look.
Speaking of a team that's been very active, the Yorkton Terriers have acquired a 20-year-old forward, Tommy Chunchukov, from the Amarillo Wranglers of the North American Hockey League in exchange for a player development fee.
There you go.
Over 100 NAHL games played.
There you go.
He had 14 points in 23 games last year. And so despite the moves we've just seen, the Yorkton Terriers just added a 20-year-old.
Added an experienced 20-year-old forward to the group. That's what I'm saying is Yorkton doesn't think they're sellers right now. I think they're looking to stay competitive.
And it comes back, at least in the Viterra division, it comes back to that point.
Yes.
No team's out of it.
No team's out.
But it's interesting. And I kind of agree with you. I don't know if there's a designated. Yes, Larange has traded away some players. Yorkton's traded away some players, but I still don't think there's a designated seller in the SJHL this year. I mean, even Notre Dame.
Even Notre Dame in
12th. I don't think there's a designated
They just added a
seller
goalie
this year.
So it's like,
Yeah, for sure. And I think if we're going to see a lot of movement, I think we're going to see teams making deals with teams outside of the league.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's just my kind of 2 cents. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be a busy next couple of 6 days. And we will keep you posted on sjhl.ca, across the SJHL social media platforms. Lots going on. There's the graphic. Lots to talk about, lots to recap. We'll see if there's any moves over the weekend. You never know, and of course, if there are any moves over the weekend, follow the social medias, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, but also we'll recap all those moves if there are any over the weekend on SJHL Weekly on Monday. And then come next Insider, we'll recap it all on the next episode of SJHL Insider coming out next week. So busy time after the holiday break. It always is when it comes to SJHL news, at least, both on and off the ice. Before we go, got to give a big shout out to all of our great sponsors here, the SJHL. Of course, UPL is our presenting sponsor. As always, thank you, UPL. Bourgault, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Chevrolet, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, SAS Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGU, SGI. Thanks so much for your support. All of our great sponsorship friends at the SJHL. We got a lot of them, and we appreciate all of you so much for all of your support, because without your support, these shows would not be possible. Clark, final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I sound like a broken record because I say this almost every week, but how much snow is out there right now? Not much. Get to the rinks. Get to the rinks this weekend. There's a Super Saturday, folks. Get to the rinks. You have no excuse. Super. The roads are good. We keep knocking on any wood we can find to make sure that continues the way that it has. But, well, maybe not all the farmers, but we'll get to that in another episode maybe. But anyways, get to the games. The games are great. Every game is so important right now, and there's a lot of really big ones coming up. So get to your rinks, support your teams, and enjoy.
Yep, 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. And, of course, if you can't make it to the games, hopefully you got a Flow Hockey subscription for Christmas.
Yeah.
And if not, if you maybe got a little for Christmas from a loved one, Flow Hockey, get your subscription today ahead of the stretch drive for the SJHL and the playoffs. But busy weekend on tap in the SJHL. 11 games on the schedule. Like Clark said, get out to your local rink, support your local team. If not, tune in on Flow Hockey. For Clark Monroe, My name's Jeromy Corrigan. This has been another great episode of SJHL Insider. Enjoy the games this weekend, everyone.